Lamed Vav, and we're up to Sif Chav. He says over here as follows: HaKaved, that's the liver. Yesh b'y harba dam. There's much blood in the liver. They say that the whole liver is really full with blood, but there's like a casing that holds it. And that's like the shell that. Normally, by meat, there's blood in all the meat. So by elder breed, we have an eitzah that you should salt it, and when you salt it, it takes out the blood, and then after that. There's still blood that remains really after you salt it. But after you salt it, it's called, I think, chamra, the bisra. It means it's like the juice. It's like juice of the blood. But over here, he said there's so much blood that salting will not help, will not get it out. So you need something stronger than salting. What is stronger than salting? Tzli, to roast it. But he says, before you, so that's what they said. So the only eighth is l'tzloisei al yedei eish, that to roast it on fire. But he says, avotzrichen mikaydem l'chodche heitiv. You have to cut it. You make cuts in it. We're not talking over here about chicken livers. We're talking over here about an animal liver. Animal liver comes big slices, so you have to. Make like there's different opinions. Some say you have to cut like a shesi be'erev, like one up, perpendicular and horizontal, two cuts. We call it shesi be'erev because that's the nice way that we don't want to say what they bow to, what they kiss, So that's also, it's a shesi be'erev. That's what it is. And some say really. If you just put like holes in it, like with a knife, it's also good. And put it in this cut up way with the cuts in it on top of the fire. L'man yishav heitev adam, yishav heitev kol adam shabai. In order that all the blood that's in it should come out. Then he says, "Umadichan oisai, kaidem shomadich oisai eish." And before you put it on the fire, so we rinse it. Your father said, we rinse it. Why do we rinse it? Because we don't want there to be any blood on top of it yet. So whatever is on the surface, you wash off before the rinse of it. When it's laying on the fire, you put a little bit of salt on it. The little bit of salt, it helps the draw. It's not a type of salting. Before we learned, when you salt meat, it has to cover like a coating of salt on the meat. Over here, you don't need a coating of salt. Over here, you need a little bit of salt. It helps the fire to draw out the blood. Till it'll be roy to be eaten. Now, roy to be eaten, that's not clear how much it has to roast. Some say it has to be chotzi tzli, some say it has to be tayet tzli, but that gets out, it started forming a crust on it. That's an ayah that it's getting to the point. Once you're finished on the fire, it's finished. So you rinse it in water, because the blood that came out is on the meat. So maybe there's a blood that dripped down, and there's blood that's still on the meat, on the liver. So you have to rinse it off. And you have to rinse it 3 times. He's going with the shita, like I said before, by the salt, by meat that's salted, you have to rinse 3 times. So over here also you rinse it 3 times, and barakach yichayim uvashra, and after this you could cook it.
If you wash it, why you need to?
What?
If you wash it, then why you need to cook it? If you wash it,
I'll tell you, there's a lot of people that like to make the cut meat, cook it up with onions, or cook it up with mushrooms or with other vegetables. That they mix it, they make a whole dish out of it. So that's cooking. The only shayla is I think there's a shayla by roasted liver. That's only if it was roasted within 3 days of the shechita. So they get in kapachos. But if it was more than 3 days, even if you did sli, you shouldn't cook it afterwards. That's how I remember then. Now over here,
how come we don't cut?
You don't.
We don't cut the liver before roasting.
You don't. It says of it that you make cuts in it. I said some make shesi ve'erev,
yeah,
and some just make cuts with a knife in it.
But I saw livers of chicken.
no, you say about
Huh?
I saw people doing livers of chicken. My mother used to
No.
used to do the livers of the chicken without cutting.
I said that we're not talking about the liver from the chicken. We're talking about. I said beef liver.
Okay.
I just said before that we're not talking about that liver.
Okay.
That liver is a little different. Now, what I want to be ma'ida, there's some people that say, how do you roast the liver? So you go into. I saw once in a butcher store how they roast the liver. They have like a gas that they turn on the gas, and the liver hangs on top, and the blood keeps dripping down.
On a grill.
Huh? No. We'll soon get to that. We'll soon get to that. I'm saying that in the butcher store I saw that they have a gas that they turn on, and the fire comes up from the gas, and the liver hangs on top of it, and so the blood comes down. A balabuster is not going to do that. She wants to have a clean job. So what does she do? She has like a grill. It's a piece of metal with holes in it, like a screen, but it's cut out with more holes. And you put the liver in between the 2 pieces of metal, and you could turn it on the fire. You could turn it this way, then you turn it to the other way. And of course, you have to cover the stove when you do it. You have to cover it, because otherwise you have blood over there. That's the simple way how to do it. But the mashal, let's say, after you roasted the liver, could you roast a piece of chicken the same way? Like you took off the liver from that metal frame, you put down a piece of chicken and roast it. You can't. Why can't you? Because there's dam on that grill. Yeah, you know what you'd have to do? You'd have to first burn out
everything.
that grill, and after you burn out that grill, then you could it's a whole job already. So usually people don't use that anymore for roasting. They have it special for liver and for nothing else. Now today, there's a lot of people that have a barbecue. So the shayla, could you make roasted liver on the barbecue? How does the barbecue work? The barbecue works that there's coal in the bottom. There's coal in the bottom, and then later there's a grate. And when they want to make, let's say, hot dogs or hamburgers, they lay them on the grate, and you put a fire to the coal, and it's a gabi esh. Over there, you also have to be careful. It could be that you could do it, but you couldn't just use the grate to do hamburgers and hot dogs, because the meat, the liver was laying on it, and the blood got into the grate, so you would have to burn it out. If you want, they have today what they call a disposable what?
Grill.
A disposable grill that's used only one time. So if you have, that's so eitzah, you could use a disposable grill for a grate, and then later throw it out. So go ahead, there's no shadow. But if you have a expensive grate people have in their backyard or what, where they always have barbecues and everything, if you do a liver on it, then you have to know how to kasher the grate after that. Now I mentioned last night that there's also a shaila. Does the fire have to be under, or could the fire be on top? So usually the fire is under, but there's a type of a broiler where there's a bottom and then there's a cover, and in the cover there's the wires of the electricity. And so first of all, they once had a shaila if it has to be dafka eish, but they paskin that electricity is also considered eish. So it's good to use that also. And they also paskin that it makes no difference if it's coming from on top or if it's coming from the bottom. So that's the halacha. Now there's a shaila also. What happens if you did this in the sun? How do you do it in the sun? You take a glass, and the glass gets the reflection of the sun in it. It gives off a heat, a spark. It's because you make a liver that way. They pass me that you shouldn't do that. Good. Okay. So that's regarding the liver. Now he says, Tzarech lizor l'tzeloisa dafka ala eish v'lei b'tanu gorov. Tanu gorov means, you have, let's say, an oven, where they bake, that's called a tana gorov. Tana gorov means a cleaned out tana. In other words, usually in the tana there's coal, but over there there's no, you don't see any, but there's a lot of heat there. Let's say you baked a cake, so there's a lot of heat there. Question is, could you now use that heat to make it deliver? He says not. It has to be dafka eish. Eish could be electric also, as I told you before. It has to be dafka eish. V'chein loy yichachu oisa benaya v'tzloisa kach v'afilu benaya garua. I don't know what it means, naya garua. He touches over here plus paper. I don't know what plus paper means, but sometimes people want to have a clean. They don't want to have the liver dripping over. The blood is dripping over. So in order to avoid that the blood shouldn't drip, so they wrap the liver, and the heat gets to it. But he says you're not allowed to. Because why? Because then it'll be laying with blood in the liver. It'll be like laying in a keli shein menukav, and just like the salting the meat, if it's in a keli shein menukav, it's not good because the blood has to drip out. It's like everything else, the blood has to drip out, and it's not going to drip out if it's wrapped with some type of cooking paper or roasting paper. Aval ein l'moech kaved kaidem tzliya k'der shamochim bosa. But he says, so he said before that it has to be dafka roasted. He said you can't make it. The reason why you can't salt it is I explained already one time that the whole idea of salting is that it opens up the pores of the meat, and the blood begins to rain up. But if by liver there's so much blood that salting it will not get out all the blood. So then it'll be called dam shapirish. Dam shapirish means blood that moved. In other words, if this is a piece of meat and the blood was over here and it moved down to here and it didn't come out, then it's you can't eat the meat. When you make it tzliya gabi eish, so it takes out entirely the blood; it doesn't remain. So he's saying that you can't salt. So someone said, I'll salt it, I'll get the blood out. Nine. You're not going to get all the blood out. The blood will just move in the meat. So it'll be dam shapirish. Dam, that shapir means that moved around. Moving around the blood is not good because it's still inside. So that's what he says. Einu mleach kaved kaidim tzriya kedera shemochen basa. You shouldn't do that. Avo umikoshkein she'einu mleach kaved im basa biyachad. Because over here a lot of blood is coming out, and over here it's less blood coming out. So the blood from the liver may go into the meat, so you shouldn't make it together. But the evidence state that if you did do it, it's kosher, but we don't do it. Hatachol dinai kisha basa. The tchol is like all meat. Rakshitzrichen lahasa mimenu kayim shriya es akrum she'olav mishum chaylev. I think is in English. I think that's called the spleen, right? It's called the spleen. Yeah.
What they got them left to come from his army.
Huh?
He makes that person can run without being tired.
Okay, so that's the spleen. So he said that the spleen is like it's a piece of meat, and but there's some fat on it, and that fat they said you have to take off, and you have to. There's also it's like in a casing. The krum is a casing, so the casing doesn't let the blood come out, or doesn't let the salt get through it. So he says before you salt it, you have to remove the krum. Neidel Reish Hagid u'Moshech Oisai v'nimshachem im gimel ima gimel chut m'shabatoichay. This is there's certain veins over there that are in there. V'tzarech rizor shra yafsek shum chut v'im nifsek tzarech l'shadesh achrov. In other words, in the chutim there are blood. Now, if it's you need the chutim because you want the blood to come out, but if it got cracked, so then it's not going to come out. It's like a pipe that breaks in the middle. So then you have to l'shada shaka. That means to root after, like they dig it out to get it out. Chachulas usha me'ayim. I don't know what's chachulus. It's a part of the intestines of the animal, of the animal, of a chicken. Like
Where you smile?
Huh?
Where you smile?
Is that in Shulchan Aruch? There's a whole simon.
Dat heb je problemen, ja.
In Yeridea.
Het mag een kistje.
Okay, in Yeridea, there's a Rav Dafka from chicken, right? Today they make kishke, they make in plastic.
Yeah, yeah.
But in Morgenzeiten, they made what was called casing. The casing was a big kishke, and they would stuff it up with meat. Or like matzah meal and other things.
Wat weten de Lubavitcher? Dat is een gel, weten. Lubavitcher weten niet alle zaken.
Now you can't. He said before. You remember when we were going to meat? He said that you have to salt from both sides. So, but over here you can't salt inside because you can't get into it. It's like a sleeve, okay? The lung of the animal is like a sleeve. So you could do it on the outside, but you can't get into the inside. But you can do it. So that's why he says that you have to do it beside the chisin, shashuman davik sham, where there's the fat over there. The fat is a meat. So, Keva shel Egel, Shenimtzu bo Cholav. Now, Keva is the stomach. In the stomach, there could be milk in it from the animal. The animal produces milk. We're talking about a female animal. So a female animal has milk, and the milk can go into the stomach. So he said that now, the cave is a very important part, because when people, let's say, when people make cheese, how do they make cheese? They make cheese in the stomach of the animal. So it has a fermentation thing in it that they need it by making cheese. There's a whole shayla about if you could use from kosher animal what they used to call gelatin. Gelatin was made in the stomach of an animal, from the stomach of an animal, and there was I once showed him. I have a whole sefer home. There was a Rabbi Cornwell. There used to be a candy called Barton's, if you remember the name. There was two kosher candies. One was Barton's and one was Barasini. Barasini had a hechsher from the OK, from Better Levy, and Barton's, the hechsher, the owner of Barton's, davened here in Shul.
This is across at my house.
He davened here. They davened here in Shul. They came from Europe, and they knew the chocolate business. They were in Europe also in the chocolate business. Over here there was, before me, there was a Rabbi Baumel there. Rabbi Baumel. And Rabbi Baumel, in this shul, davened the first Shem Shabbos congressman. His name was Herbert Tenzer. You may look around on the windows, they covered things up now, but there was a windows that had his name on, Herbert Tenzer. Herbert Tenzer moved later to the Rockaways, to the Five Town, and he became a congressman. But he was a wealthy man. So Rabbi Baumel made a shidduch between the Bartons. Their name was Klein. Bartons was the name of the kid, their name was Klein. He made a shidduch between them and Tenzer, and they made the Barton's chocolate. Barton's chocolate was located downtown.
Flatbush Avenue and Livingston.
Huh?
Flatbush Avenue and Livingston.
Yeah, number 80 over there, downtown. And they have a son by name George Klein, who's a very wealthy man because he owned a lot of real estate over there, where all the building now, all those big buildings are being built. And Klein's had a shvager by the name Rabbi Cornwell. Rabbi Cornwell was a Rav in Albany, New York. And then when he came from Albany, he moved to the Five Towns. He was a rabbi in Gizur. He was a big Talmud Chacham. And he made a sefer, and there's a whole kuntus in the sefer about gelatin. That's because it was made from the keva, it was made from the stomach. And the question is, huh? Yeah. So the question is, how does it have to be a kosher? Does it have to be treif? Is it parev? Is it fleshig? What is it? So in the stores, you should know, they sell a thing called kojo. And kojo on it, there's a K. But from a Yidden shouldn't buy it because it's a shayla. That particular hechsher is from an old Rav from a Gurus Harbonim that his anicle is, I think, today a conservative rabbi that gives the hechsher. But they also make a joiva. This joiva is a candy with chocolate covered like gelatin, like yellow inside. That's also a big shayla on it, if it has just a K. The Fruma Yidden make it different. They make it with a fish gelatin. That's a different thing. But so the keva is a big shayla, and he's saying over here. So first, we're talking over here. We're talking over here about a kosher keva, okay? Later, when they want to make cheese, or what the question, drying it, how does the drying have to be? How dry that they say they dry it becomes like eights, like a piece of wood. But he's saying over here that just that the keva that you have to kasher it, and could be people ate it also. They're just it's like meat. So we said there could be milk in it, and b'meila, so shoifchen es acholav, koydem shrias, v'areihu kishal basar. You throw out the milk that's in it, and it's like a piece of meat, and you can salt it and cook it and eat it regular. Now he says also, Beitzim shenimtzu b'toich oifes. I'm all gescheiten was a little different today. Today, chicken became a business for itself, and eggs became a business for itself. How does the chicken have eggs? So it's a connection. They had what they call a hen and a rooster. A hen is a female chicken, and a rooster is a male chicken. You can tell the difference between them. If you look at the head, there's like a crown. So the rooster has a big crown, a big red crown, and the hen, like the king and the queen. The king has a big crown, and the hen has a small crown. When the chicken would get together, the chickens would get together. So b'meila, the hen would hatch an egg. Then when the hen hatched an egg, the hen would sit on the egg for, I think, 21 days, the shit is, and then later they gave birth to another chicken. That's how it was in olden days. Today, it doesn't work that way. Today, a chicken is made without an egg, and an egg is made another way. So when it was possible that when you went to the farm, let's say, to buy a chicken, you could open up the chicken, and in the chicken you'll find an egg. That egg, so two types. It's found that you find in a chicken little brown eggs without a shell, like what we call the yolk. It didn't develop yet with the white around it and with a shell. It's just a little brown piece that like little yolks. Or you could find a whole egg in the chicken that if the chicken wasn't geschochten today, tomorrow it would lay the egg. But you bought it before you shechted it, so you opened it up, and the egg was in it. So that egg is fleshig. An egg normally is part of when it comes out of the chicken, but that egg is fleshig. That egg that's fleshig, you have to soak it and salt it, and then it's kosher to eat it. But you have to eat it not with milk. Or if you can't fry it, make a fried egg with butter. You can't do that because it's a fleshig egg. Okay, we'll continue about the eggs.